The millionaire CEO gave his leftovers to hungry 7-year-old twins, and unexpectedly, his $1 billion contract was saved. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. The rain hammered against the windows of the 42nd floor conference room like bullets from heaven, each drop echoing Marcus Williams's crumbling empire. At 55, Marcus had built Williams & Associates from nothing into a billion-dollar consulting firm, but tonight he watched 12 years of blood, sweat, and sacrifice vanish in real time. "I'm sorry, Mr. Williams," said Jonathan Hayes, the lead representative from Chen Industries, his voice cutting through the storm outside. "Your proposal simply doesn't meet our requirements. We'll be moving forward with Richardson Corp." Marcus felt his chest tighten. The billion-dollar contract with Chen Industries wasn't just another deal. It was the lifeline his company desperately needed. 3 major clients had already jumped ship this quarter, spooked by rumors of financial instability. Without this contract, Williams & Associates would file for bankruptcy within 6 months. "Jonathan, please," Marcus said, his voice steadier than he felt. "Give me 48 hours. I can revise the proposal, address every concern your team raised." Hayes was already packing his briefcase. "The decision is final, Marcus. Chen Liu himself reviewed your proposal. He found it lacking in substance." The conference room fell silent except for the rain. Marcus watched his dream slip away as Hayes and his team filed out, leaving him alone with his own reflection in the darkened window. 43 employees would lose their jobs. Families would suffer, all because he couldn't deliver when it mattered most. 2 hours later, Marcus stumbled out of Romano's Italian restaurant, his untouched dinner of osso buco still warm in the takeout container. He'd lost his appetite completely, but couldn't bear to waste the expensive meal. The rain had softened to a gentle drizzle, and downtown Chicago's neon lights blurred through his exhausted tears. That's when he saw them. 2 little girls, no older than 7, huddled together under the awning of a closed pharmacy. They wore identical pink raincoats that had seen better days, and their dark hair was matted from the dampness. One held the other protectively, both watching passing strangers with hopeful eyes. "Excuse me, mister," the braver one called out as Marcus approached. "Do you have any food? My sister and I haven't eaten since yesterday." Marcus stopped dead in his tracks. Here he was, drowning in self-pity over a lost business deal, while these children were literally starving on the streets. Without hesitation, he knelt down and handed them the Romano's container. "It's still warm," he said gently. "Osso buco with risotto. Have you eaten Italian food before?" The girl's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. They tore into the meal with trembling hands, tears mixing with the raindrops on their cheeks. Marcus felt something shift inside his chest, something he hadn't experienced in years. Pure, uncomplicated human connection. "What are your names?" he asked. "I'm Lee," said the first girl between bites. "This is my twin sister, Anne. We're waiting for our daddy to find us." "Where is your daddy?" Lee looked up with innocent certainty. "He's very important and busy, but he always finds us. He's testing something for work." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. These weren't ordinary homeless children. Their English was perfect, their clothes expensive despite being dirty. And that word, testing, sent an inexplicable shiver down his spine. Before he could ask more questions, a black sedan pulled up to the curb. The window rolled down just enough to reveal a pair of intense dark eyes watching the scene unfold. Marcus couldn't see the driver's face clearly, but he felt those eyes studying him with laser focus. The man made a subtle gesture, and Lee immediately perked up. "That's our ride," she whispered to her sister, quickly closing the takeout container. "Thank you, mister. You have a good heart." As the girls climbed into the sedan, Lee turned back one last time. "My daddy will remember this," she said with a wisdom far beyond her years. The sedan disappeared into the Chicago night, leaving Marcus standing alone under the pharmacy awning, wondering if he'd just experienced something profound or if his stress-addled mind was playing tricks on him. Either way, tomorrow would bring the harsh reality of bankruptcy proceedings and difficult conversations with employees who trusted him. What Marcus didn't know was that his simple act of kindness had just set in motion events that would change everything he thought he knew about success, failure, and the true measure of a man's worth. Marcus arrived at his office building at 6 a.m., hoping to avoid the inevitable confrontation with his employees. The Williams & Associates logo still gleamed on the glass doors, but it felt like a gravestone marker now. The elevator ride to the 20th floor felt endless, each floor ding echoing like a countdown to disaster. His assistant, Sarah, was already at her desk with red-rimmed eyes and a steaming cup of coffee that had clearly gone untouched. She'd been with the company for 8 years, starting as an intern, fresh out of Northwestern. Now she was looking at him like a daughter watching her father fail. "The staff knows," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Word leaked about the Chen Industries meeting. Richardson Corp's people were apparently celebrating at Murphy's pub last night. Half our junior staff was there. Marcus felt his stomach drop. How much do they know? Everything. The contract amount, the timeline, the bankruptcy projections. Sarah's voice cracked. "Mr. Williams, people are scared. Jenny from accounting called me crying at midnight. She just bought her first house." Marcus nodded grimly and made the hardest decision of his professional life. "Call an emergency meeting. All hands. Conference room in 30 minutes. The next half hour crawled by as Marcus rehearsed what to say to people who'd trusted him with their careers, their families' futures. Some had been with him since the beginning. Tom from operations, who'd taken a pay cut to join the startup. Maria from HR, who'd turned down 3 better offers to stay loyal. 43 faces stared back at him in the main conference room when he finally walked in. The silence was deafening. You could hear the ventilation system, the distant hum of traffic 20 floors below, the anxious breathing of people whose worlds were about to crumble. "I won't sugarcoat this," Marcus began, his voice thick with emotion he couldn't quite control. "We lost the Chen Industries contract. It went to Richardson Corp. Without it, based on our current burn rate and client attrition, we have maybe 4 months of runway left, 4 months before we'll be forced to file for Chapter 11. The room erupted in whispers and worried conversations. He saw Jennifer Walsh from accounting raise her trembling hand, tears already streaming down her cheeks. "What about our pensions, our health insurance? My daughter starts college in the fall. I'll personally guarantee every pension, every benefit package, even if I have to liquidate my own assets," Marcus promised, his voice stronger now. "You have my word on that. My house, my investments, everything I own. It's all collateral for your futures." Tom Richards from operations stood up, his face flushed with anger and fear. "With all due respect, Marcus, your house won't cover 43 families' worth of benefits. What's the real plan here?" Before Marcus could answer, his phone rang. The ringtone cut through the tension like a knife. Unknown number. Every eye in the room was on him. "I have to take this," he said apologetically. "Mr. Williams?" The voice was accented, calm, and somehow eerily familiar. Chinese, perhaps with perfect English pronunciation. "This is Chen Liu. I believe we need to meet." Marcus nearly dropped the phone. Chen Liu himself, the mysterious billionaire who never took direct calls, who communicated only through intermediaries and lawyers. The man whose rejection had just destroyed everything Marcus had built. "Mr. Chen, yes, of course. When would be convenient for you?" "Tonight. Millennium Park by the Bean. Come alone." "And Mr. Williams?" "Bring an open mind." The line went dead. Marcus looked up at 43 expectant faces, unsure whether he'd just received a lifeline or a final nail in his company's coffin. The Cloudgate sculpture reflected Chicago's skyline in its polished surface as Marcus approached at precisely 8 p.m. The February wind cut through his wool coat like ice, but he barely noticed. His mind was racing with possibilities, fears, and the desperate hope that somehow this meeting could change everything. Chen Liu stood silhouetted against the city lights, a slight man in his 50s wearing an elegant charcoal coat that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Despite his unassuming appearance, he radiated a quiet authority that made Marcus feel suddenly underdressed and unprepared. "You came," Chen said, extending his hand with a firm grip that spoke of hidden strength. "That's encouraging. Many men in your position would have sent a lawyer or made excuses." "Mr. Chen, about the proposal. I know Richardson won the contract, but if there's any way we could discuss, walk with me." Chen gestured toward the park paths with a dismissive wave. "Tell me, Mr. Williams, what did you have for dinner last night?" The question caught Marcus completely off guard. Of all the things he'd expected Chen to ask, about revised proposals, partnership opportunities, damage control, this was not on the list. I didn't eat. I ordered ossobuco from Romano's, but I gave my takeout to some children who needed it more." Chen's expression remained carefully neutral, but Marcus caught a flicker of something in his dark eyes. Interest? Approval? It was impossible to read. Interesting. And how did that make you feel? Giving away an expensive meal when your own world was collapsing? Marcus considered the question seriously. Like I'd done the only decent thing possible. Those girls were hungry, genuinely hungry. What kind of person walks past starving children, especially children that young? "You'd be surprised," Chen replied softly, his voice carrying a weight of experience. "In my 25 years of business, I've watched most successful men walk past suffering without a second thought. They're too focused on their next deal, their next acquisition, their next victory." They paused by the Crown Fountain, where children played and laughed during the warmer months. Now it stood silent and dry, its video screens dark, waiting for spring's return like everything else in the frozen city. "Your business proposal was technically sound," Chen continued, his hands clasped behind his back as he studied the empty fountain. "Your financial projections were realistic, conservative even. Your team credentials were impressive, your implementation timeline was aggressive but achievable." Marcus felt a spark of hope. "Then why? But it told me nothing about who you are as a man." Chen interrupted gently. "Any MBA can create spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations. Any consultant can promise efficiency and cost savings. What I cannot buy, what I cannot teach, what I cannot manufacture is character." Marcus felt confusion mixing with desperate hope and growing frustration. "I don't understand what you're looking for." Chen turned to face him directly, his dark eyes seeming to look straight through to Marcus's soul. "I've built my fortune on reading people, Mr. Williams. Technical competence is common. You can find it in any business school graduate. Intelligence is abundant. Half of Silicon Valley has IQs over 140. But character? True character? That's rarer than diamonds." The wind picked up, carrying the scent of lake water and distant snow. Marcus pulled his coat tighter. "I'm offering you a second chance," Chen continued, "but not in the way you might expect, not a traditional business contract, not a simple client relationship." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. "What kind of chance?" Chen smiled enigmatically, the first real emotion Marcus had seen from him all evening. "Meet me tomorrow at the Southside Community Center, 2 p.m. sharp, and Mr. Williams, dress casually, very casually." The Southside Community Center buzzed with activity when Marcus arrived wearing jeans and a polo shirt, clothes he hadn't worn since his college days at Northwestern. The building was older, paint peeling in places, but filled with an energy and purpose that his gleaming corporate offices somehow lacked. Chen was already there, dressed in worn khakis and a simple sweater, talking animatedly with Maria Rodriguez, the center's director. She was a woman in her 40s with kind eyes, calloused hands, and the bearing of someone who'd spent years fighting for her community. "Marcus, perfect timing," Chen said, as if they were old friends meeting for a casual Saturday activity. "Maria needs volunteers for the weekend food distribution program. I told her you might be able to help." Marcus looked around at the organized chaos. Families lining up with empty bags and quiet dignity, volunteers sorting donations with military precision, children running between tables while parents tried to maintain order. The diversity was striking. Elderly African-American couples, young Latino families, white middle-aged individuals who looked like they'd recently fallen on hard times. "I'm not sure what I can contribute here," Marcus said honestly. "I don't know anything about food distribution or social services." "Everything," Maria said firmly, studying him with the same intensity Chen had shown. "We need someone to coordinate the family intake process. It requires patience, discretion, and genuine care for people's dignity. Can you handle that?" For the next 4 hours, Marcus found himself face to face with struggling families from across Chicago's South Side. Each interaction was a masterclass in human resilience and quiet desperation. Single mothers working 3 jobs to keep their kids fed. Elderly couples choosing between medication and groceries. Recent immigrants trying to navigate a complex system while maintaining their pride and dignity. Each interaction required him to balance efficiency with compassion, to see past the paperwork to the human being sitting across from him. One elderly man, Frank Washington, reminded him painfully of his own father, proud, stubborn, embarrassed to need help, but too desperate to refuse it. "I ain't taking no charity," Frank declared, his weathered hands shaking slightly as he pushed the application form back across the table. "I worked 40 years at the steel mill, 40 goddamn years. I never took a handout in my life." Marcus looked into Frank's eyes and saw his own father's stubborn pride, the same refusal to accept help even when drowning. "This isn't charity, sir," Marcus replied gently, pushing the form back with equal determination. "This is neighbors helping neighbors. You've contributed to this community your whole working life. You've paid taxes, supported local businesses, raised your children here. Now the community wants to give back to someone who gave so much." Frank's eyes softened, his rigid posture relaxing slightly. "When you put it that way, son, I guess I never thought of it as neighbors helping neighbors." "Nay." Throughout the afternoon, Marcus noticed Chen observing from various corners, sometimes helping with inventory, sometimes talking quietly with other volunteers. But those intense dark eyes kept returning to Marcus, evaluating every interaction, every decision, every moment of frustration or compassion. As they cleaned up, Maria pulled Marcus aside. "You're a natural at this. Have you considered regular volunteering? We could use someone with your organizational skills and your way with people." "I don't think I have the time," Marcus began automatically, then caught himself. If his company was failing anyway, what was he really so busy with? Watching his empire crumble in slow motion, Chen appeared beside them as if summoned. "Time is the one resource we can always find more of if we're willing to look in the right places." Walking to their cars in the community center's small parking lot, Chen asked quietly, "How did today feel to you, Marcus?" "Humbling," Marcus admitted, surprising himself with his honesty. "These people are dealing with real problems, hunger, homelessness, medical bills they can't pay. My business troubles seem almost trivial in comparison. And yet your business troubles affect 43 families directly. Success isn't trivial when others depend on you for their livelihoods." Marcus felt a strange sense of being evaluated, tested for qualities he didn't even know he possessed. Is this part of some elaborate interview process? Chen paused by his modest Honda Accord, a car that probably cost less than Marcus's monthly office rent. Everything is an interview process, Marcus. The question is whether you're auditioning for the role you think you want, or discovering the role you were meant to play. Over the next week, Marcus found himself caught between two completely different worlds. His days were spent desperately trying to save his company, cold calling potential clients who didn't return his messages, renegotiating contracts with suppliers who were losing faith, cutting costs wherever possible while watching his employees' morale sink lower each day. But his evenings belonged to something entirely different. Chen had somehow arranged for Marcus to be involved in various community activities throughout the week. Monday night at the Harrison Street homeless shelter, serving dinner and listening to stories that broke his heart. Wednesday afternoon at the Sunset Manor Senior Center, playing chess with retired teachers and factory workers who had more wisdom in their weathered faces than most boardrooms. Friday evening found him at the community center again, helping elementary school kids with math homework. 8-year-old Destiny struggled with multiplication tables while her mother worked a double shift at the hospital. 10-year-old Miguel translated his homework problems from English to Spanish for his grandmother, then back again to show Marcus his work. Each activity seemed random, yet Marcus sensed a pattern he couldn't quite grasp. More puzzling was how natural it all felt. At the office he was struggling, making uncharacteristic mistakes, feeling overwhelmed by problems that seemed to have no solutions. But working with people who had genuine immediate needs, he felt competent, useful, alive in a way he'd forgotten was possible. His wife, Patricia, noticed the change immediately when he returned home Friday night. She was in the kitchen, still wearing her scrubs from her shift at Children's Hospital, heating up leftover lasagna. "You're different," she said, studying his face as he sat down across from her at their kitchen table. "More like the man I married 25 years ago." "What do you mean?" Marcus asked, genuinely curious. "Focused, present. You're not constantly checking your phone or mentally reviewing spreadsheets while I'm talking. You're here, really here, with me." She reached across the table to touch his hand. "When was the last time we had dinner together without you taking 3 business calls?" Marcus realized she was absolutely right. The volunteer work was providing something his corporate success never had, a sense of purpose that went beyond profit margins and market share. His phone buzzed with a text from Chen. "Tomorrow, 9 a.m., Lincoln Park Zoo. Dress warmly. Bring your curiosity." At the zoo, Marcus found Chen standing before the penguin exhibit, watching a father explain animal behavior to his young daughter. The little girl's enthusiasm was infectious, her questions endless and delightfully naive. "Daddy, why do they huddle together like that? Are they cold? Do they get sad when they're alone?" "My daughter loved penguins at that age," Chen said quietly, his voice carrying a tenderness Marcus hadn't heard before. "She would spend hours here, asking the same questions over and over. What did you tell her?" "That survival requires both individual strength and community support. The penguins understand something many humans forget. We're stronger together than apart. They take turns standing on the outside of the huddle, protecting the group from the wind." Marcus watched the father lift his daughter for a better view, pointing out the way the penguins moved in careful coordination. "You have children, Mr. Chen?" "Twin daughters, 7 years old. They're my entire world." Chen's voice carried a weight of love and protectiveness that was almost tangible. "Everything I do, every business decision I make, is ultimately about the world I'm leaving for them." Something nagged at Marcus's memory, something about twin daughters, something recent and important, but Chen was already moving toward the next exhibit. "Tell me, Marcus, in all your volunteer work this week, what surprised you most?" Marcus considered the question carefully as they walked past families, enjoying the unseasonably warm February day. How much I enjoyed it. I thought helping others would feel like obligation, like checking boxes on some cosmic scorecard. But it feels like privilege. These people have taught me more about resilience and hope than any business school ever did. Chen nodded approvingly. And your company? How are things progressing there? Honestly, badly. We're hemorrhaging clients faster than I can replace them, and I can't seem to focus on the cutthroat tactics needed to save us. I keep thinking about the families who depend on those jobs, about Sarah, who just bought her first house, about Tom, who's been with me since the beginning. They paused before the wolf exhibit, where a pack was demonstrating the complex social dynamics that made them one of nature's most successful predators. Marcus noticed that the alpha wolves weren't the biggest or strongest, but the ones who seemed most attuned to the group's needs. Perhaps your focus is exactly where it should be, Chen said thoughtfully. I have a proposal for you, Marcus, but it's not what you're expecting. Meet me Sunday at Navy Pier, 11 a.m. And bring Patricia. It's time she understood what's really happening here. Navy Pier stretched into Lake Michigan like a bridge to nowhere, its shops and restaurants mostly empty on the cold February morning. Marcus walked hand in hand with Patricia, both confused about why Chen had insisted she join them for what was supposed to be a business meeting. Patricia had been skeptical when Marcus explained the unusual request. Since when do potential business partners want to meet the spouse? And why at a tourist attraction instead of an office? They found Chen at the end of the pier, staring across the lake toward the horizon, where grey water met grey sky in an indistinguishable line. He seemed smaller somehow, more vulnerable than the commanding presence Marcus had grown accustomed to. "Patricia," Chen said warmly, extending his hand with genuine pleasure. "I've heard wonderful things about your work at Children's Hospital, the pediatric oncology ward, specifically." Patricia smiled, surprised but pleased. "Thank you, though I'm not sure why Marcus's business associate would know about my nursing career. I hope he hasn't been boring you with stories about my patients. Quite the opposite. I make it my business to understand the character of people I work with, and character is often revealed through the company we keep, the partners we choose, the values we share." Chen gestured for them to sit on a nearby bench that faced the lake. The wind was bitter, but somehow the cold felt cleansing. "I owe you both an explanation," Chen began, his usual composure giving way to something more personal. "Over the past month, I've been conducting what you might call an unconventional evaluation process." Marcus felt his stomach tighten with a mixture of anticipation and dread. Evaluation of what? "For the past 5 years, I've been searching for the right partner to expand Chen Industries into American markets. Not just any partner, someone who shares my values, my commitment to ethical business practices, my belief that success means more than quarterly profit reports." Patricia squeezed Marcus's hand, sensing the importance of this moment. "And Marcus is being considered for this partnership." "Marcus has been undergoing a series of character assessments," Chen explained carefully. "The volunteer work, the community involvement, even this conversation, all designed to reveal who he truly is when no one is watching, when there's no obvious benefit to himself." Marcus felt a surge of anger mixed with hope. "You've been manipulating me? Testing me like some kind of lab rat?" "I've been giving you opportunities to show your true nature," Chen corrected gently. "The business proposal was just the beginning, a way to create pressure, to see how you respond when everything you've built is at stake." Chen stood and walked to the pier's railing, gripping the cold metal as he gathered his thoughts. "I've tested 12 CEOs this way over the past 5 years. Most failed within the first week. They saw the community work as beneath them, a distraction from real business. Others performed adequately but clearly viewed it as a box to check, a hurdle to overcome. And Marcus? Patricia asked, her nurse's instincts reading the emotional undercurrents in both men. Marcus surprised me. He didn't just participate, he thrived. More importantly, he began to change. His approach to business problems shifted from purely transactional to genuinely caring about human impact. He started seeing employees as people rather than resources. Marcus stood abruptly, his frustration boiling over. So this has all been some elaborate psychological experiment. My company is still failing, my employees are still going to lose their jobs, and you've been treating it like some kind of business school case study. Chen turned back to them, his expression serious but not unkind. Your company doesn't have to fail, Marcus. Your employees don't have to lose their jobs. But saving both requires you to understand what I'm really offering here. Which is what, exactly? Partnership in a venture worth far more than your original billion-dollar contract. But it means fundamentally transforming how you think about business itself, about success, about what really matters. The wind off the lake cut through their jackets as Chen continued, his voice gaining strength and conviction. I'm not just looking for a business partner, Marcus. I'm looking for someone who can help me build something that matters, someone who understands that true success is measured not just in stock prices and market share, but in the positive impact we have on people's lives. Marcus felt the world shifting beneath his feet, everything he thought he knew about this situation crumbling and reforming. What exactly are you proposing? Chen smiled for the first time that morning, and for a moment Marcus caught a glimpse of something familiar in those dark eyes. Patience, my friend. There's still one more test to pass, and this one will determine everything. Not just your future, but the future of everyone who depends on you. Marcus spent Monday morning in his office staring at financial statements that painted an increasingly grim picture. 3 more clients had called over the weekend to reassess their consulting needs. Corporate speak for jumping ship. Sarah knocked on his door with her usual morning coffee and an envelope that would change everything. This came by messenger, she said, handing him the thick cream-colored envelope with no return address. The delivery man said it was urgent. Inside, Marcus found a single sheet of paper with Chen's distinctive handwriting. Marcus, your final assessment begins now. For the next 2 weeks, you will manage the operations of the Southside Youth Development Center while Director Carmen Martinez takes her long overdue vacation. Your business training will be irrelevant. Your character will be everything. Do not contact me during this period. Your decisions will speak louder than any words. CL. Below the note was an address and the signature of Carmen Martinez, formally transferring temporary authority to Marcus Williams. Marcus felt his heart racing. This wasn't just another volunteer opportunity. This was full responsibility for an organization serving hundreds of at-risk youth. He had no experience with social services, no background in youth development, no idea what he was walking into. Patricia found him that evening sitting in his study, staring at the note. "What's wrong? You look like someone died." "Maybe someone did," Marcus replied, handing her the letter. "Chen wants me to run a youth center for 2 weeks. What do I know about helping troubled kids?" Patricia read the note twice, then sat down beside him. "You know how to listen. You know how to care. You've proven that over the past month." She squeezed his hand. "Maybe that's exactly what those kids need. Someone who sees them as individuals, not problems to be solved." Tuesday morning, Marcus arrived at the Southside Youth Development Center at 7 a.m. The building was a converted warehouse in a neighborhood that had seen better decades. Graffiti covered most surfaces, but someone had painted beautiful murals over the worst of it. Children's laughter echoed from the gymnasium, even at this early hour. Carmen Martinez was a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen everything. She gave Marcus a tour that felt more like a military briefing. "We serve 140 kids between ages 8 and 18, she said briskly. "Breakfast program starts at 7:30, after-school program until 8 p.m. Weekends we run sports leagues, tutoring, job training for the older ones. 80% of these kids are from single-parent homes, 60% qualify for free lunch programs, 15% are in the foster system." They stopped in front of a bulletin board covered with photos of smiling children. "These are our success stories," Carmen continued. "Kids who graduated high school, got scholarships, avoided the streets. But for every success, we lose 2 to gangs, drugs, or despair." Marcus studied the faces, young people who'd beaten tremendous odds. "What's the secret? How do you reach them?" "You don't reach them," Carmen replied. "You meet them where they are. You show up every day. You prove that someone gives a damn about their future." She handed him a thick binder. "Emergency contacts, daily schedules, disciplinary procedures. Any questions?" Marcus looked around at the bustling activity. Kids playing basketball, volunteers preparing breakfast, teenagers working on computers. "Just one. What if I mess this up?" Carmen smiled for the first time. "Then you'll learn something important about yourself. These kids have survived worse than anything you can do wrong." The first crisis came within hours. 15-year-old Damon Johnson stood in Marcus's temporary office with blood on his knuckles and fury in his eyes. The other boy, Tony, sat in the hallway with an ice pack on his swollen jaw. Both were suspended from the center's programming, pending Marcus's decision. "He called my mama a crack whore," Damon said, his voice shaking with rage. "Nobody disrespects my family. Nobody." Marcus looked at the incident report. This wasn't Damon's first fight, but his academic scores were excellent and his volunteer hours impressive. Tony, meanwhile, had a longer disciplinary record, but came from an even more challenging situation. Aging out of foster care with nowhere to go. The easy solution was to suspend both boys for a week. The policy manual was clear. But Marcus found himself thinking about Chen's tests, about character being revealed under pressure. "Tell me about your mother," Marcus said to Damon. "What?" "Your mother. You defended her honor. Tell me about her." Damon's defensive posture softened slightly. "She works 2 jobs to keep me and my sister in school. She's been clean for 3 years. But people still talk, you know, still judge." Marcus nodded. "And Tony? Why do you think he said what he said?" "Because he's an asshole." "Because he's hurting," Marcus corrected gently. Hurt people, Damon. It doesn't excuse what he said, but it explains it." Marcus spent the next hour talking with both boys separately, then together. By the end, Tony had apologized, genuinely, and Damon had agreed to mentor Tony in math where he was struggling. Instead of suspensions, Marcus assigned them to work together on a project, researching successful people who'd overcome difficult childhoods. They would present their findings to the younger kids as part of the center's mentorship program. Word of Marcus's unconventional approach spread quickly through the center. Staff members were skeptical, this corporate executive playing social worker, but the kids responded differently. They tested him constantly, pushing boundaries, looking for signs that he was just another adult who would give up on them. Marcus failed often that first week. He lost his temper when 16-year-old Jessica showed up high and belligerent. He felt helpless when 8-year-old Maria cried because her father had been deported. He made scheduling mistakes that left 20 kids without lunch one afternoon, but he kept showing up, every morning at 7 a.m., every evening until the last teenager went home. He learned their names, their stories, their dreams. He discovered that Marcus Jr., age 12, wanted to be an architect like his grandfather. That Aaliyah, 14, wrote poetry that would make professional writers weep. That Carlos, 17, was supporting his disabled mother while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. By the end of the first week, something had shifted. The kids still tested him, but now it felt more like acceptance than rejection. They wanted to know if he was real, if he would stick around when things got difficult. Friday afternoon, Marcus was helping 10-year-old Deshawn with homework when Sarah called from the office. "Richardson Corp called," she said. "They want to poach 3 more of our senior consultants. They're offering signing bonuses." Marcus looked around at the bustling center. Kids doing homework, playing games, just being kids in a safe space. "Tell them our people aren't for sale." "But Marcus, we can't match their offers. We might lose them anyway. Then we lose them, but we don't make it easy." That evening, Marcus stayed late to help prep for Saturday's community festival. As he painted backdrop scenery alongside teenage volunteers, his phone buzzed with emails from potential clients, crisis updates from his management team, urgent requests for his attention. He turned the phone off and kept painting. The call came at 3 a.m. on Wednesday of the second week. Marcus fumbled for his phone, assuming it was a crisis at his company. "Mr. Williams, this is Officer Rodriguez, Chicago PD. We have one of your kids here at the station, Carlos Mendez. He asked us to call you." Marcus was dressed and in his car within minutes, his mind racing. Carlos was one of his most responsible kids, 17 years old, straight-A student, planning to study engineering at Northwestern on a scholarship he'd earned through sheer determination. At the police station, Marcus found Carlos in a holding cell, his usual confident demeanor replaced by terror and shame. The arresting officer, Sergeant Williams, no relation, explained the situation. "We caught him with a bag of marijuana. Not a small amount. Enough to suggest intent to distribute. He's looking at serious charges." Marcus felt his stomach drop. There has to be some mistake. Carlos isn't involved with drugs. "Nah, that's what they all say," the sergeant replied cynically. "Look, I know you mean well with that community center, but these kids, this is where they end up eventually." Marcus demanded to speak with Carlos privately. When they were alone in the consultation room, Carlos broke down completely. "I needed money for my mom's medication," he sobbed. "Her disability check doesn't cover everything, and I couldn't work more hours without affecting my scholarship. This guy offered me $500 just to hold the bag for 2 hours. Carlos, why didn't you come to me, to the center? We have emergency funds for exactly this kind of situation. Because I was ashamed, because asking for help feels like failing." Carlos's voice cracked. "You don't understand what it's like, Mr. Williams. You've never had to choose between your mom's heart medication and keeping the lights on." Marcus felt the weight of his own privilege crushing down on him. Carlos was right. He'd never faced that kind of impossible choice. But he was wrong about one thing. "You're not failing, Carlos. The system failed you. I failed you by not making it clear that asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness." Marcus spent the next 6 hours working the phones, calling in every favor he'd accumulated over 25 years in business. A lawyer friend agreed to take the case pro bono. A doctor contact expedited Carlos's mother's medication approval. Marcus personally covered the family's bills for the next 3 months. By Friday, the charges had been reduced to community service, which Carlos would complete at the youth center. His scholarship was safe, his future intact. But the incident shook Marcus to his core. How many other kids were facing impossible choices? How many were slipping through cracks he didn't even know existed? That evening, Marcus called an emergency meeting with the center's staff and volunteers. The conference room, really just the multi-purpose room with folding chairs, was packed with people who dedicated their lives to helping kids most of society had written off. I've been here 10 days, Marcus began, and I've learned more about leadership than 25 years in corporate America taught me. These kids face challenges I can't even imagine, yet they show up every day with hope. They deserve better than a system that sets them up to fail. Janet Thompson, the head counselor, spoke up. It's nice that you care, Mr. Williams, but caring doesn't fund programs. We're operating on fumes here. Half our computers don't work. We need new sports equipment. The roof leaks every time it rains. Marcus pulled out his personal checkbook, something he rarely carried anymore in the age of digital payments. How much do you need for immediate repairs and equipment? The room went silent. Janet stammered, Mr. Williams, we couldn't accept. 50,000, Marcus said, writing the check, for immediate needs. But that's just the beginning. These kids need more than Band-Aids. They need a system that believes in them. He stood up, feeling more certain than he had in weeks. I'm going to fix this, not just with money, but with something bigger. These kids are going to have opportunities that kids in wealthy suburbs take for granted. Walking home that night, Marcus realized that somewhere between Carlos's breakdown and writing that check, he'd stopped thinking about saving his company and started thinking about saving lives. Chen's test was working, but not in any way Marcus could have anticipated. Saturday morning brought the community festival that the kids had been planning for weeks. The youth center's parking lot was transformed with colorful banners, food trucks, and activity stations. Local families filled the space with laughter and music, creating the kind of authentic community celebration that couldn't be manufactured or bought. Marcus was manning the face-painting booth, an assignment that would have horrified his corporate colleagues when he noticed two familiar figures approaching through the crowd. Chen Liu walked hand in hand with two 7-year-old girls in matching pink dresses. Marcus's heart nearly stopped. The girls from that rainy night, Li and Anne. "Daddy, that's him!" Li exclaimed, pointing directly at Marcus. "That's the nice man who gave us food." Marcus felt the world tilt on its axis as all the pieces suddenly clicked into place. The mysterious test, the constant observation, the emphasis on character over credentials. Chen's daughters had been his unknowing judges that first night, and everything since had been an elaborate assessment of the man who'd shown kindness to two hungry children. Chen approached with a smile that held both apology and admiration. "I believe you've met my daughters, Li and Anne. They've been my most trusted advisors throughout this entire process." That was all planned?" Marcus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Not planned, tested." Chen's expression grew serious. "For 5 years I've been searching for the right partner for my American expansion. I've evaluated dozens of successful CEOs, brilliant entrepreneurs, charismatic leaders. They all failed the first test." "Which was?" Li stepped forward, her 7-year-old voice filled with the gravity of a much older person. "Daddy puts us on the street when it's raining or cold. We pretend to be hungry and see if grown-ups help us. Most people walk by like we're invisible." Anne nodded solemnly. "Some people give us money but won't look at us. Others call the police to take us away. But you gave us your dinner and asked our names." Marcus felt tears he hadn't realized were building spill down his cheeks. "You had your own children, testing strangers on the street." "Always safely," Chen assured him quickly. "Always with protection nearby. But yes, I had them test the basic human decency of potential partners. Because if a person won't help a hungry child, they can't be trusted with anything that truly matters." The festival continued around them, but Marcus felt suspended in a bubble of revelation. Everything, every volunteer assignment, every community project, every seemingly random encounter had been carefully orchestrated to reveal his character under pressure. "The community center," Marcus said slowly. "Carmen's vacation. This was all." "Carmen is my sister-in-law," Chen admitted. "She's been providing regular reports on your progress. How you handled conflicts, whether you showed up when things got difficult, if you truly cared about the kids, or were just going through the motions. Marcus looked around at the festival, at the kids he'd grown to love over the past 2 weeks, at the families who'd welcomed him into their community. Was any of it real? All of it was real, Chen said firmly. The kids' needs, the center's challenges, the impact you've made. None of that was performance. The only thing that was manufactured was the opportunity to reveal who you truly are. Lee tugged on Marcus's shirt. Mr. Marcus, are you sad? Daddy didn't mean to trick you. He just wanted to make sure you're good people before he becomes your friend. Marcus knelt down to Lee's eye level. I'm not sad, sweetheart. I'm grateful. Your daddy taught me something important about myself. What did you learn? Anne asked, with the curiosity only children possess. Marcus considered the question carefully. I learned that helping people feels better than making money. I learned that these kids are stronger and smarter than most adults I know. And I learned that the best test of character isn't what you do when people are watching. It's what you do when you think nobody cares. Chen placed his hand on Marcus's shoulder. There's one more thing you need to know. Your company, Williams & Associates, it's not going to fail. Marcus looked up sharply. What do you mean? Richardson Corp got the original contract because I needed you to experience loss, to understand what really matters when everything else falls away. But Chen Industries has much bigger plans for you, Marcus. Plans that will not only save your company, but transform it into something unprecedented. As festival-goers laughed and children played around them, Marcus felt his entire understanding of the past month reshaping itself. The test wasn't over, it was just beginning. That evening, Chen invited Marcus and Patricia to his home in Lincoln Park, a modern masterpiece that somehow managed to feel warm and welcoming despite its obvious wealth. Lee and Anne gave them a complete tour, proudly showing off their playroom, their art studio, and the library where Chen read to them every night. Daddy has 743 books, Lee announced, with the precision only children apply to things they find important. But his favorite is the one about the little prince who learns that what's essential is invisible to the eye. Over dinner prepared by Chen's housekeeper, Mrs. Wong, the adults finally addressed the elephant in the room. Patricia had been unusually quiet throughout the evening, processing everything Marcus had told her about the revelation at the festival. I have to ask, Patricia said, setting down her chopsticks. Why go to such elaborate lengths? Surely there are simpler ways to evaluate potential business partners. Chen smiled, helping Anne cut her dumpling into smaller pieces. Simple evaluations tell you what people want you to see. I needed to know who Marcus truly is when he thinks no one important is watching, when there's no obvious benefit to himself. But the risk, Marcus interjected. What if I had failed your tests? What if I'd ignored the girls that first night, or treated the community center assignment as a burden to endure? Then I would have known you weren't the right partner for what I have in mind, Chen replied simply, and I would have moved on to the next candidate. Lee looked up from her rice. But you didn't fail. You passed every test, even the ones Daddy didn't tell you about. What other tests? Marcus asked. Chen's expression grew serious. Every volunteer assignment had multiple layers. At the homeless shelter, we watched how you treated people who clearly had mental health issues, who might be difficult or unpleasant. At the senior center, we observed your patience with elderly people who moved slowly and repeated themselves. Anne chimed in. And when Damon and Tony were fighting at the youth center, Uncle Carmen called Daddy to tell him how you solved it without punishing anybody. Marcus realized the scope of observation had been far more comprehensive than he'd imagined. How many people were reporting on me? Fewer than you might think, Chen said. But enough to get a complete picture. The remarkable thing, Marcus, is that you were consistent. Whether dealing with children, elderly people, homeless individuals, or troubled teenagers, you showed the same respect, the same genuine care. Patricia reached across the table to squeeze Marcus's hand. "I'm proud of you," she said simply. "Now," Chen continued, "let me tell you what I'm really offering." He led them to his home office, where architectural plans covered a large conference table. Chen Industries is launching a new division, Chen Williams Community Impact Consulting. Our mission will be to help corporations integrate genuine social responsibility into their business models. Marcus studied the plans. "This looks like community centers, schools, nationwide," Chen confirmed. 50 community centers in the first 5 years, each one designed to serve as both a youth development facility and a training ground for corporate executives who want to understand what real leadership looks like. The scope was breathtaking. Marcus could see his role expanding far beyond traditional consulting into something that could genuinely change lives on a massive scale. "Your company becomes the American headquarters for this initiative," Chen continued. "Your staff keeps their jobs, but their work transforms from traditional corporate consulting to something with real social impact. The financial package is 3 times larger than the original contract you lost." Patricia gasped. 3 times? "But there's a condition," Chen said, his tone becoming more serious. "You can't approach this as a traditional business opportunity. This requires a fundamental shift in how you measure success. Profit matters, but impact matters more. Stock prices matter, but changed lives matter more." Marcus felt his head spinning with possibilities and responsibilities. "What about my existing clients, my current obligations?" "We'll honor every commitment, fulfill every contract. But going forward, Williams & Associates becomes Chen Williams Community Impact. Every client engagement must include a meaningful social responsibility component." Lee had been quietly drawing during the adult conversation, but now she held up her artwork, a crayon drawing of stick figures holding hands around what looked like a building. "That's the community center," she explained proudly. "And that's you, Mr. Marcus, helping all the kids be happy." Marcus looked at the innocent drawing and felt something shift permanently in his chest. This wasn't just about saving his company anymore. This was about building something that mattered, something that would outlast quarterly reports and stock prices. "I need to discuss this with my team," Marcus said finally. Chen nodded. "Of course. Take all the time you need. But Marcus, remember that the kids at the youth center don't have time. Carlos doesn't have time. Every day we delay is another day that talented children fall through cracks that could be fixed." As they prepared to leave, Anne tugged on Marcus's jacket. "Mr. Marcus, will you still visit us at the community center, even if you become Daddy's business partner?" Marcus knelt down to her level. "Anne, if I become your daddy's partner, visiting the community center won't be something I do on weekends. It'll be my job, every single day." The little girl's smile could have powered the entire city. Walking to their car, Patricia was unusually quiet. Finally, she spoke. "You know this changes everything, right? Our lives, our priorities, everything we thought we wanted." Marcus looked back at Chen's house, where warm light spilled from the windows, and he could see the silhouettes of a father reading bedtime stories to his daughters. "Maybe it's time for everything to change," he said. The Williams & Associates conference room had never felt so small. 43 employees sat in stunned silence as Marcus finished explaining Chen's offer. 3 months ago, these same people had watched their world crumble. Now they were being offered something beyond their wildest dreams, and some were terrified. "Let me get this straight," said Tom Richards, crossing his arms defensively. "We're giving up traditional corporate consulting to become, what, social workers?" "Community impact specialists," Marcus corrected gently. We'll still use all our business skills, but we'll be helping corporations integrate meaningful social responsibility into their operations. Every project will have real-world impact on communities like the South Side. Jennifer Walsh raised her hand tentatively. What about our salaries, our benefits? I have a daughter starting college. Every salary increases by 30%, Marcus announced, watching jaws drop around the room. Full benefits, including expanded family coverage and education assistance. Chen Industries believes in investing in people, not just projects. Sarah, his loyal assistant, spoke up with characteristic directness. Marcus, this sounds incredible, but it also sounds too good to be true. What's the catch? Marcus walked to the window overlooking downtown Chicago, gathering his thoughts. Below, he could see people hurrying to jobs that maybe fulfilled them, maybe didn't. He thought about Carlos, about Damon and Tony, about all the kids at the community center who deserved better opportunities. The catch is that we can't measure success the same way anymore, he said, turning back to face them. Yes, we'll be profitable, more profitable than ever. But we'll also be measured by lives changed, communities strengthened, children given hope. Some of you might find that uncomfortable. Uncomfortable? Maria from HR laughed, tears in her eyes. Marcus, 3 months ago we thought we'd all be unemployed. Now you're offering us the chance to make a real difference while earning more money? That's not uncomfortable, that's miraculous. Over the next hour, Marcus fielded questions, concerns, and excitement from his team. One by one, they began to understand the scope of what Chen was proposing. This wasn't charity, it was revolutionary business practice. Young David Chen from the analytics team, no relation to their benefactor, raised a practical concern. What about our existing clients? Johnson Manufacturing, Hartford Insurance, the others. We honor every commitment, Marcus assured him, but we also help them understand how social responsibility can enhance their bottom line, not drain it. Johnson Manufacturing, for example, could sponsor youth job training programs. Hartford could provide financial literacy education in underserved communities. The meeting lasted 3 hours. In the end, the vote was unanimous. Williams and Associates would become Chen Williams Community Impact Consulting. That evening, Marcus returned to the Southside Youth Development Center for what he thought would be his final visit as a volunteer. Carmen Martinez had returned from her vacation, really a carefully orchestrated absence to allow Marcus's test, and the center buzzed with its usual energy. "Mr. Marcus," Damon called out from the basketball court. "Come settle an argument. Tony says LeBron is better than Jordan, but he's crazy, right?" Marcus laughed, grabbing a basketball and sinking a shot that surprised everyone, including himself. "Depends what you mean by better. Jordan had the killer instinct, but LeBron has the longevity and the social impact." "Social impact?" Tony asked, confused. "LeBron's school in Akron, his scholarship programs, the way he uses his platform to address social issues." Marcus dribbled the ball thoughtfully. "Both are great players, but LeBron understands that true greatness means lifting others up with you." Carlos approached the group, looking healthier and more confident than Marcus had seen him since the arrest. "Mr. Williams, I heard a rumor. Someone said you're starting a program that gives kids like us real job training and internships with major corporations." Marcus smiled, realizing word had already begun to spread through the community networks. Not just job training, Carlos, full partnerships. Kids who show potential will get mentorship, internships, and college scholarships. But more than that, they'll have adults who believe in them unconditionally. An hour later, as Marcus was preparing to leave, he found Lee and Anne waiting by his car with Chen. The girls wore matching purple coats and serious expressions that seemed too old for their 7-year-old faces. "Mr. Marcus," Lee said formally, "Daddy told us you said yes to being his partner." "I did. Your daddy is a very smart man, and he's offered me the chance to do something really important." Anne stepped forward with the gravity of a tiny diplomat. "We have something for you." She handed him a small wrapped package. "We made it ourselves." Inside, Marcus found a hand-painted coffee mug with "World's Best Friend" written in careful, childlike letters. Around the rim, tiny figures held hands, some tall, some short, representing people of different ages and backgrounds. "Lee painted the people," Anne explained proudly. "I wrote the words. Daddy helped with the spelling." Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. "This is the most beautiful gift I've ever received." Chen placed his hand on Marcus's shoulder. "They wanted you to know that you passed the most important test of all." "Which was?" "The test of friendship," Lee said simply. "Daddy says business partners come and go, but real friends stay forever." 6 months later, Marcus stood before the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the first Chen Williams Community Impact Center in Detroit. The facility combined a traditional youth development center with corporate training spaces where executives learned leadership through community service. Patricia stood beside him, wearing her new badge as Director of Family Services for the Chen Williams Foundation. Sarah had become his Director of Operations, coordinating programs across multiple states. Tom Richards now managed the Corporate Partnership Division, helping companies understand that social responsibility wasn't just good ethics, it was good business. Most importantly, Carlos was there as the program's first intern, working with automotive executives to develop job training programs for urban youth. Damon and Tony had both received full scholarships to Northwestern, where they were studying engineering and social work respectively. As Marcus cut the ribbon, he thought about that rainy night 8 months ago when his world had collapsed. He'd thought he was feeding 2 hungry children out of simple human decency. He'd had no idea he was taking the first step toward discovering his true purpose. In the crowd, he spotted Lee and Anne wearing matching dresses and beaming with pride. Chen stood behind them, no longer the mysterious billionaire testing his character, but a true friend who'd helped him understand that success isn't measured by what you accumulate, but by what you contribute. The facility doors opened, and hundreds of children rushed in to explore their new community center. Their laughter echoed off the walls like music, a symphony of possibility and hope. Marcus realized that night on the street hadn't been about 2 hungry children testing his kindness. It had been about the universe testing whether he was ready to discover who he was truly meant to be. The answer, surrounded by the joyful chaos of children claiming their space, was clear. He was exactly where he belonged, doing exactly what he was meant to do, with exactly the people who mattered most. Sometimes the greatest success comes not from reaching the top of the mountain you've been climbing, but from discovering you were meant to climb a completely different mountain altogether, one where the summit isn't a lonely peak, but a place where everyone can stand together.